Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to make this beautiful high-low maxi dress with side pockets. If this is something you are interested in, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. So let's get started. I'm going to start by cutting out the down part first. So we are going to make some calculations here. The full length of the dress I'm making is 48 inches. From the shoulder to where the dress is going to stop is 48 inches. So I'm going to subtract the half length from this. The half length is 17 inches. So I have 31 inches. So the length of the down part is going to be 31 inches. The down part is divided into two parts also. There is gathers at the bottom of the flare. Now I'm going to determine the length of the gathers I want, and I'm going to subtract that from the length of the skirt. So the length of my gathers is 10 inches. Then I subtracted it from 31 inches. So the length of the flare I'm going to cut out now is 21 inches. I'm going to cut out a half circle flare for the down part before joining my gathers later. So next thing I'm going to do is to get the radius of my skirt. So the radius is equal to waist circumference divided by 3.14. In this case, the waist circumference I'm working with is 37 inches. So I'm going to divide that by 3.14. So when I did that, I have 11.78. I just approximate it to the nearest number, which is 11.75. So the radius of my skirt is going to be 11.75 inches. So to know what I'm going to cut out on my fabric, I'm going to add the length of my skirt to the radius. So I'm going to add 21 inches to 11.75 inches. So I have 32.75. So what I'm going to cut out on my fabric is 32.75 inches. So I'm going to be cutting out the front and the back separately because of the side pockets. So what I'm going to measure out on my fabric is 32.75. But to be on the safer side, I can just make that 34 inches. So I'm going to place my tape measure from the starting point, and I'll measure out 34 inches like this. So I'm going to place it in a bias form. So I'm going to place my fabric in a bias form. I'm going to fold it like a triangle. So I'm going to check to be sure I have the length I need. Now I'm going to place my radius on the skirt. Remember the radius is 11.75, but I'm going to add 1 inch to that because of the side pockets. That will serve as an allowance to join both sides. So the length of the radius I'm going to mark out now is 12.75 instead of 11.75. So I keep rotating my tape and I marked 12.75 as the radius. Then I connected my dotted lines. Then I'll also go ahead and impute the length of the flare. The length of the flare is 32.75, including the radius. So I placed my tape at the starting point and I impute the length of the flare. And I keep rotating that all around. So I'm going to connect the dotted lines. So I'm going to cut out now. To cut out the down part, I'm not going to cut directly on the line. I'm going to add half-inch allowance to the bottom part. This will serve as an allowance to join to the gathers. So I'm going to cut out like so. Then I'm going to cut out the sides also. And I'm going to cut my radius. To cut out my radius, I'm going to add half-inch allowance before the radius. This will serve as an allowance to join to the upper bodice. So this is what I have after cutting out. Now I'm going to use this to cut out the back piece. So I've gone ahead to fold the back piece also. Then I place the front piece on it, making sure I have 1 inch allowance before the center front. So I made sure I have 1 inch before I place the front pattern. That will serve as my zipper allowance. Then I went ahead to cut it out. Then I slashed my zipper allowance into 2 to have 2 separate pieces for the back. Then I also marked the points where my pocket is going to start from. My pocket is going to start 2 inches below the waistline. So I notched the point so it can reflect on all the 4 sides. Now I'm going to set this aside and I'll work on the bodice. So I have my pattern paper here. I'll be drafting out the pattern for my bodice. I'm going to draft out a shoulder dart bustier for my top. So I'll go ahead and label my lines. I have the shoulder line, the chest line, the bust points, under bust, and the waistline. So my shoulder to waistline is 17 inches for the front pattern. I placed half of my shoulder measurements on the shoulder line and on the chest line. Then I connected that into a straight line. Then the next thing I did was to place my neck width, which is 4 inches, and the neck depth is 3.5 inches. Then I connected that with my curve. Then I came down by 1 inch from the shoulder line, and I connected that to the neck width to form my shoulder slope. Then I got the midpoint of what I have there, and I came in by 0.75 inch. I placed cutoff by bust circumference on the chest line. Then I connected the 3 points together to form my armhole. Next thing I did was to place half of my bust pan measurements on the bust point line and on the waistline. Then I connected that into a straight line. I came down by 1 inch from the bust point, and on the under bust line, I placed 1.25 inches on both sides of the bust pan line, while on the waistline, I marked 1 inch on both sides of the line. Then I connected the under bust to the waistline with my ruler. Then I connected the bust point to the under bust with a curve, just like that. I did that to the other side also. I connected that with my curve. Then the next thing I did was to divide what I have on my shoulder into 2. So I got the midpoint of my shoulder and I marked that point. Then I came up by 1 inch from the bust point and I connected it back into the bust point line. Now I'm going to connect that point to meet the shoulder point, like so. Then I placed quarter of my waist circumference on the waistline. The quarter of the waist circumference I'm working with here is 9.25. So I marked 9.25 on the waistline and I added back the dart allowance I have there. Then I connected that point to meet the chest line. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to place my bust dart. The bust dart is simply the difference between the front waistline and the back waistline. Mine is 2 inches. So I came down by 2 inches from the bust point line. Then I connected that point to meet the bust point. So that is it for the front pattern. I'm going to cut this out now. So I have the center front and the side front. I'm going to set this aside and I'll work on the back pattern. So this is my center back. All my measurements will be starting from that point. So I have the shoulder line, chest line, and the waistline. I placed half of the shoulder measurements on the shoulder line and on the chest line, and I connected that into a straight line. Then I marked my neck width, which is 4 inches, and I came down by 1 inch from my shoulder line. I connected that to the neck width to form my shoulder slope. Then I got the midpoint of what I have there and I came in by 0.5 inch. And on the chest line, I placed quarter of my bust circumference. Then I connected the points together to get my armhole. To eliminate zipper bulge, on the waistline I came in by 1 inch from the center back and I connected that point to meet the chest line. Then I placed my bust span measurement on the chest line and on the waistline, and I connected that into a straight line. I marked 1/2 inch on both sides of the bust span line for my dart, and I connected the points to meet the chest line. I placed 1/4 of my waist circumference on the waistline. Remember, this is the new waistline. So from that point, I marked my waistline measurement, which is 9.25, and I added the 1 inch for that. Then I connected the points to meet my chest line. Next thing you are going to do now is to determine how low you want your back to be. You can decide to maintain the chest line or go beyond the chest line depending on you. Just like the one in the picture, you can see the back is really low. But for mine, I'm marking 8 inches. So I marked 8 inches from the shoulder line for my back neck depth. Then I also marked the neck width there, which is 4 inches. Then I just connected the points to make the neck width like a square, like so. So I'm going to use my curved ruler to curve out the angle there so that I can have a curved edge there. So I'm just going to curve that like so. Now I'm going to highlight my lines with the marker so you can see clearly what I did there. So that is it for the back pattern. Then I went ahead to add my zipper allowance. My zipper allowance is 1.5 inches. So what I did was to mark 1.5 inches on the center back and I connected the point. So that is my zipper allowance. And I went ahead to cut this out. I'll be adding my side seam allowance when cutting out on fabric. As you can see, the side seam of the front and the back pattern is now equal. Now I'll go ahead and transfer this to my fabric. I've gone ahead to transfer my pattern to the fabric, and I also cut out my lining piece as well. The center front was cut on fold and I added 1/2 inch allowance round the pattern, and for the side fronts I added 1/2 inch allowance round the pattern. Aside the side seam, I added 1.5 inches for my side seam allowance. And for the back pattern as well, I added 1/2 inch allowance to the down part, the neckline, and to the armhole. Then I added 1.5 inches for my side seam allowance. I already have my zipper allowance on the pattern paper. Now I'll go ahead and mark my darts. So I'm going to notch that point where I'm going to sew my darts. Then I'm going to note the points where my dart is going to start from. So I'm just going to chalk that point on both the fabric and on the lining side. So I'll go ahead and sew my darts. I'm going to stitch darts separately, on the fabric separately and on the lining separately. And for the front pattern, I'm just going to notch my bust points on the center front and on the side front. Then I'm going to remove my pattern paper and I'm going to stitch the side front to the center front. So I'm going to open up the center front and I'll place the side front on it. Then I'm going to stitch that with 1/2 inch. I'll do the same thing to the lining piece also. So this is what I have after stitching the center front to the side front. I'm so sorry, I did not know my camera was not recording. I've gone ahead to stitch the fabric and lining together, right side facing each other. I did not know I was not recording at this point. So I stitched the neckline and the sides. Then I turned it to the right side. I hope you understand what I did there. And for the back piece, I added my strap to the neckline. So what I did there was to place the rope in between the fabric and the lining. I came down by 1/2 inch below my shoulder line before placing my strap. That will serve as an allowance to join the shoulder. Then I stitched the neckline, the sides, and the zipper allowance side with 1/2 inch, and I turned it to the right side. That is just basically what I did there. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to join the shoulders. So I'll go ahead and place them right side facing each other like so, and I'll stitch the shoulders. Then I'm going to stitch the sides also with 1 inch. Remember, I already turned the fabric and lining with ½ inch, so I'm left with 1 inch. So this is what I have after stitching the shoulder and the sides. Now my bodice is now in one piece. I'm going to set this aside and I'll work on the down part. So I've gone ahead to cut out my pockets. So I'm going to be fixing that to my skirt. So I'm going to place the pockets right side facing right side of the skirt. Remember the notched points we made earlier. So we are going to place the pocket starting from the notched points, and I'm going to stitch all the way down with 1 inch. I'll do the same thing to the back piece also. I'm going to open up my back piece and I'll place my pockets on it, and I'm going to stitch that down with 1 inch. So this is what I have after stitching my pockets to the skirt part. Now I'm going to open this up and I'll place the back piece on the front piece, right side facing each other. I'll do the same thing to the second side also. I'll place the back piece like so. Then I'll start stitching from the waistline with 1 inch, and I'll come in by ½ inch at the pocket sides. And I'll stitch with 1 inch all the way to the hem of the skirt. I'll repeat the same process for the second side also. I'm going to start stitching from the waistline with 1 inch, and I'll come in by ½ inch at the pocket side, and I'll stitch with 1 inch to the hem. So this is what I have after doing all that. My skirt is now in one piece. Now I'll go ahead and fold the skirt into 2 equal halves like this. I want to get the center front. I want to mark out my eye low effect now. So you're going to determine how low you want your front piece to be. For mine, I just want my front piece to be about 8 inches lower than the back. So on the center fold there, I came up by 8 inches. I marked 8 inches there. So I'm just going to connect that point to meet my side seam. So I'm just going to use my free hand to draw my curves. I'm just going to connect my curve like so into the side seam like that. So this is it. I'll go ahead and cut this out. So this is it after cutting out. You can see the difference between the front and the back. Now I'll go ahead and measure around what I have on the down part. I'm going to measure around what I have to cut out my gathers. So after measuring, you are going to multiply whatever you have there by 2.5 inches or 3 inches, depending on how full you want your gathers part to be. And remember, the length of the gathers we measured earlier is 10 inches. So I'm going to add 1.5 inches to the 10 inches to make 11.5 inches. The extra allowance I added is ½ inch to join to the skirt part and 1 inch to hem the down part of my skirt. So what I have here is 11.5 inches in length, and now I'll go ahead and hem the down part of the fabric ½ inch twice. So this is what I have after hemming the down part of my gathers. Now I'm going to place this right side facing each other. I'm going to place it on my skirt part. So I'll go ahead and make pleats on the down part of my skirts. So this is what I have after joining my pleats to the skirt piece. Now I'm going to place my skirts into 2 equal halves. I want to get the midpoint of my waistline. So I'm going to notch the center point, and I'm going to notch the center point of my bodice also. Then I'm going to open this up and I'll place the right side of my skirt facing the right side of the bodice. I'm going to match them up at the center point. I'll match them at the side seam also. Then I'm going to join this to the waistline with 1/2 inch. I'm going to stitch it all the way down with 1/2 inch. So this is what I have after joining the down parts to the upper parts. My dress is now in one piece. Then the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and fix my zipper to the back of my dress. So my zipper is going to stop about 8 inches below the waistline. So I'll just go ahead and fix my zipper now. And you fix any sleeve of your choice. So I've gone ahead to fix my zipper to the back of my dress, as you can see. And I also fixed my sleeve. I made use of a puff sleeve. I have different tutorials on my channel on how you can cut a puff sleeve. So if you don't know how to do that, you can check that out. And this is what it looks like in the front. You can see the difference between the front and the back. So this is the final outcome of my dress. You can see how beautiful it looks like. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Please do not forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. And also put on your notification bell so you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.